You know what time it is, RJ?
Crimping time.
Crimping time. All right, guys, so last time you saw me with this harness and this Corrado, well, we did all this. We laid a bunch of wire, we electrical taped it all, and well, this is Josh's new engine harness for his Volkswagen Corrado. Because if you guys don't recall, this has been Josh's project for like the last like 10 years. He had a really crappy harness on it, with really crappy management, with a really crappy hardware, and we finally convinced him to step it up. And well, we got him a link, and now we're making him a whole new harness from scratch. So last video, I'll put it in the description. I'll probably forget, but go check it out if you want to get up to this point, because we took a full, they call it flying lead harness, and made it into something that will power his little, 16 valve here. So last time you did see me though, I did make a little sub harness for the coils. Right here, right? Not too shabby. So he is running smart coils. He's running a R8 coil, which means it has a power, a signal, and 2 grounds. So all we did was throw all the grounds together. We're gonna ground it to the head. Some people use a sensor ground. I hear they make a lot of noise in the harness, so just ground them to the chassis. And then we have our power source, and we have our 4 trigger sources right here for each individual coil. So we're gonna be putting a pigtail on here and a pigtail on the corresponding side of this harness, so it's a nice little detachable harness. It's pretty cool, right? Yeah.
Nice and easy.
Pretty cool. So today, a very important piece of the puzzle finally showed up. Here we go. Most of our pigtails for the harness. So these are all new plugs and everything for Josh's harness. We got these all at wiringspecialties.com. They have a lot for the Toyota, GM, Toyota, Nissan. We have new ones for the injectors. We have the sub harnesses for the coil packs. We have some for his aftermarket sensors and all that stuff. And all of that, and the Volkswagen stuff that I couldn't find, we're just gonna cut off his old harness. Sound good?
Sounds great.
So what we have to do today is we have to take all of these extra wires that I ran right here that aren't going to anything, and well,
cap them.
sign them to a connector.
Oh.
All right, for our first connector, we're gonna start with our little ignition coil sub harness. Got a good idea for it. So I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I suck at this. I'm not gonna front. I'm not good at this. I guess I don't have enough. I mean, I really haven't done this much, so I still need some more seat time on it. But if you look, we have our plastic connector right there. I got a 6-pin. And honestly, if you're making a universal harness and you're just kind of shoving these in there, you can use whatever you want. You could, this is a Nissan 6-pin because, well, I like Nissans. So it comes with these little metal clips right here. And it comes with these little rubber pieces right here. Oh yeah. One is orange. Yeah, look at RJ, look at, they're so festive. We got an orange one.
Wow.
Halloween. All right, so check it out. What we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be taking these metal pieces right here. We're gonna be using our little crimper right here, and we're gonna be squeezing these things onto our wire. And then once these are crimped on, we just shove them in this connector.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I honestly did not know that that's how that did stuff.
You've seen me do this before.
Nope.
Okay. You don't watch it.
You know why?
Why?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Ouch.
Because I'm usually working.
All right, so first off, let's strip a little bit of each wire. How much wire? Well, we'll figure that out pretty quickly. So we have our strip pieces right there. Now we're gonna take our little insulators, right? We'll slip these bad boys over. Now. All right. So this is the part I probably suck at the most. And so we take our little metal pin here, right? Take our crimping tool, which Link actually sells one. RJ just figured that out, so.
I didn't figure that out. I knew it. I just couldn't remember where I put it on the site.
It's on the site. So what we take with this, we stick it in here. We find the corresponding size, which seated in there. You see that?
Yep.
I'm gonna take our wire, stick her in, and just squeeze. Then we take our little insulator, which, if you're me, you probably forgot it. And then you're like, crap, you have to cut it off and recrimp it. And then this you just kind of put a little pressure on. Boom. And that's it.
Wow.
So let's do that 4 more times. How are you looking here, RJ?
Artsy.
Not too bad, right?
That's pretty good.
All right, boys. So we have the pins on. Now we can slip them into our connector. And you're probably wondering, how do you know which one goes where? Well, for this one, this is a sub harness, so it doesn't matter. We just have to make sure our corresponding end on the actual engine harness matches where we pin it. That makes sense, right?
Why does it not matter?
Because we will be defining the other connector in the harness, right? So this is the end that goes on our engine harness.
Yep.
They plug into each other. We just have to make sure we keep track of where these ones go, so when we pin it on the harness, they match.
Sure.
Cool.
You're gonna do it with me, so
Yep.
I'm not concerned.
Yeah. Hear that click?
Mm-hmm.
Very satisfying. Clicked right in. Sometimes if you crimp them poorly, you bend the connector a little bit and it doesn't fit as well as it should. I'm not saying I do that a lot, but it does happen. So the last thing we gotta do to lock these pins in place is to put on this piece in the back. And, well, ready for it? Boom.
Nice.
That's it. There's our connector.
Wow.
Look at that. Looks like a pro did it.
I don't know.
It's not bad. All right, so we'll just start with these, right? We have them in our hands. So these are for our pressure sensors. We have fuel pressure, and then we have oil pressure, which is something I hope Josh has. So these are really easy to look up because, you know, it's an aftermarket gauge, so AEM gives you the information pretty readily available. And so we have 3 wires here. We're gonna have a sensor ground, sensor 5 volt, and then the actual signal wire itself. So let's pin these up.
Wow.
That was pathetic. I don't know. I don't like this AEM connector. It feels kind of cheap. All right, I got one done. I ruined my other pin, so Josh doesn't have an oil pressure sensor yet. So
I guess finding oil pressure in Josh's car will be a surprise.
yeah, we might not want to know that one. So we have fuel pressure. So next I'm gonna do some easy ones, and that's the injectors right here. So these are just typical EV1 style plugs. If you guys know anything about connectors, it's a very common connector. They have an EV style that actually has this quick connect on it, versus, if you guys know, that stupid pin you gotta pull off that usually goes flying across the room that you never find again. If you have a Nissan, you know. You can get the quick release one. So we have 4 injectors, boom, right here. They each get a power, right here in red, and a signal. Right now it doesn't matter which one because we don't gotta keep track. All we have to know is the power does go one way, and all I know is the power goes on the right. Now I know this because I just went outside and looked at a set of injectors. Because I have a bunch of cars out there that have EV1 style injectors.
Resourceful. I like
Resourceful,
it.
right? Use what you got. We have one big piece of insulator right here that we slip on the wires. Unlike before, we just had one, right?
Yeah.
So don't forget that, or else you're gonna be pissed because you cut your connector off, and it's a whole ordeal. So on top of that, we also have our coolant temp sensor. That is the EV1 style connector, so we're gonna bring that out too. All right.
I'm just listening. What are you doing that for?
I don't know. I'm like waiting for some confirmation. Like, all right, let's go, Jimmy. Just
Let's go, Jimmy.
it's time lapse.
Let's go.
All right, I don't know what the deal is, but unfortunately, these pins will not go into our connector. I've tried every connector. I've tried a couple of the pins. It is not going in. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if these are defective or if these are the wrong pins or what happened, but it's not gonna work. I've wasted way too much time doing this already. So what we're gonna have to do is cut off his old pigtails. We'll clean them up and we'll just have to splice them in. It's not a big deal. Just not super pumped about it. Not stoked I had to do that, but it ended up looking pretty good. So before I taped them up, I did mark them 1 through 4 because you could tell there's no physical rhythm here that tells us which injector is which. And I did that because Josh's car is base shaped and he really wants to tuck all the wires to the intake manifold. And well, I kind of just left them all on their own very long so we could really route them the exact way he wants to. So the next one, I think we actually have to cut off his existing harness, unfortunately. TPS, need that. Coolant temp sensor, Need that. Coolant temp is super easy. Doesn't really have a polarity to it because it is just a resistor style sensor. And so we can just find the 2 wires for the coolant temp sensor, looking at our pinout, make sure the colors are correct every time, triple check before you splice them in. And then for the TPS wire, it is a 3-wire one. And of course, as we know, that is a 5-volt, a sensor ground, and a sensor signal. So we just got to figure out on here which goes which, and I'm going to use handy old Google. What do you think, Josh?
I'm thinking it looks very beautiful.
It's getting there, right?
It looks like it actually belongs somewhere. That's the start.
Yeah,
So
right?
That works.
We're about halfway there, so we're good.
I'm loving it.
All right, take the camera. You're the cameraman now. All right, so we're continuing on. I got the TPS, got the coolant temp sensor in. So now I have the intake air temperature sensor, which works like the coolant temp sensor. It's just a resistor-based style sensor, so it's just 2 wires that we can put any way we want, and we actually have the connector for it, which is really nice. So, should we do some YouTube magic, Josh? You want to do the honors?
You ready?
Yeah. Intake air temp. All right, so we finally made a dent. We have more done than we have, I guess, unfinished. So the couple things we have left that I just don't have the pieces for right now. And well, we have the 3 wires right here that you guys remember from before. I ran out of pins for the oil pressure sensor. So sorry, Josh.
It's okay. I know I have good oil pressure.
You got
so
good
it's
oil
fine.
pressure?
I
Okay.
got good.
We'll cross our fingers on that one. We'll pin that in easily next time. And then these 2 right here, as you can see, these are both 2-wire systems. One is actually to kick on your fans, and the other 2 is actually control a boost solenoid. And so what we have to do for these is actually just put like a generic 2-pin connector on it and get the matching male or female connector. Then we just make the harness for those 2 things, right?
Yeah.
That's fine. We do that in the car. It's super easy. We don't need those to actually run the car. So we'll worry about that later on. But the last 2 things we have now are probably 2 of the most important. We have your ignition coils, and then we have your cam angle sensor. So let's do your ignition coil. So remember how we made that whole sub harness earlier? Josh, you don't remember, but what do you think? First time seeing it.
Oh, looks beautiful.
Pretty legit, right?
Yeah, legit.
So remember how I said we don't need to really know where these go? Well, we do now. So I marked down where each coil goes. Boom, right there. So now when we pin in our new connector right here, the male connector, we just have to match up our wires right here to, well, what I wrote down here. So easy peasy, right? Remember, quadruple check each wire color and your pinout before pinning it up. Alright, so I had my first major mess up. It's not bad, but I'm a little embarrassed about it. I don't know how I didn't catch this earlier on, but so I actually have the ignition wires and the injector wires mixed up completely. So I have my injectors controlling my coils, and I have my coils as controlling the injectors. This subscriber DM'd me and he's like, you know, you have them backwards in your video. I was like, oh, I must have just been talking fast, you know, because I'm always in such a rush. But I literally just noticed they're mixed up. So, super embarrassing, but I'm not going to try and hide it from you guys. But it's an easy fix because luckily they are in order. So what I do now is I go down here and I find my 4 injector wires, not ignition wires, and I just swap them really quick down here with these 4 blue coil wires.
Yeah, bada bing, bada boom.
Yeah, just do it right at the plug where it's good to go. So it's kind of a big mess up, but it's also not too bad.
Yeah,
So
depin, repin, you're good to go.
I'm gonna repin this, and you guys will never know. So last on the engine bay side is the cam angle sensor, and this has to be like your most important sensor on the whole engine, so you gotta be really careful with this. You can see that we have 2 wires that are shielded. So since it is like a distributor style cam angle sensor pickup, it actually has 2 points of pickups in it. It has one that actually works as a crank sensor, and another actually works as a cam sensor. And well, as you can see, it has these extra wires in it, and what that is that's shielding cable. And what that does is it actually helps shield the signal wires from any outside force that would disrupt the signal, because you want the cleanest, most precise signal you possibly could have, since it is very sensitive and very important to your engine. So these we can actually tie off and put it off to the side, because it's more or less just acting as like a barrier. All right, so we found this online, so I'm definitely stealing some content here, but it's a great representation of what's about to happen. So we have our cam angle sensor right here, and as you can tell, we have the ground, 12 volt, trigger 1, and our trigger 2 essentially. Right here, it shows oscilloscope, basically a reading of how it works. So you have the 2 pickups in here. So the top you have the crank pickup, and the bottom you have the cam pickup. As you see, there's 2 revolutions of crank for every revolution of cam, and you can kind of see the profiles on the pickups that actually plot the rotation. This is what the engine uses to then figure out where TDC is, and then fires. So we'll just, real quick, more magic?
Yeah, more magic.
Okay. One more time. Not too bad, eh?
Not too shabby.
So that was the last one on the engine side. So we gotta do one more thing before we could actually test it. So we're almost there. Remember from the last video I said, don't worry about these wires right here. So these wires down by the connector are the wires that are actually gonna talk to the chassis, right? So we have our switch power source to actually turn the ECU on. We have a output for the fuel pump relay, so it could trigger the relay on the chassis, kick on his fuel pump, and then we have the wire that's actually gonna go to his tach, so we could actually use his factory tach. Not bad, right? So this is where you would wire into your factory dash connector or interface plug into your chassis if you were using your OEM wiring. Josh's car still doesn't really have much for wiring inside the car itself, so we're gonna have to leave these off to the side until we can actually figure out what's gonna go on with that. So what I like to do is I like to add a relay into the harness to actually power the harness itself, because the ECU doesn't send power. It just grounds everything. So you have to have a source that actually sends power to the harness. Some people like to add multiple relays for different systems, like some guys like to add a relay for the injectors, coils, and the rest of the sensors. Some guys like to put a relay on everything. For Josh's setup, since it's a mild setup, I'm just gonna put a relay that basically powers the whole harness. We're gonna do a typical relay setup where we have the power wire that powers everything in the harness, throw on the relay, then we're gonna put this to a power source on Josh's chassis. Then these are the 2 wires that tell the relay to kick on. That's what tells harness kick on. So you can actually use one of the outputs on the ECU to kick this relay on. So the ECU can actually control the harness, which is cool, because if you're in there and you're tuning it, you could technically like kick it off if you wanted to. Makes it cool for dye purposes, whatever. For me, I'm just gonna have it switched on by the chassis. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna ground this, and we're gonna put our switch source as a switch source on the chassis. So when he turns his key, harness turns on, ECU kicks on, nice and easy. I don't know, should we use magic or should we time lapse it?
How about a magical time lapse?
I'll just see you guys in a second. This is what we're working with. Simple, right? Last thing I gotta do now is tape this up and we're good to go. So I honestly threw the ECU and the relay on the same trigger source, so everything just kicks on with one. I think that'll be more than fine. If you ever wanna like shut it off, you just unplug your relay. So the less wires you have in that car, dude, I think the less troubles you're gonna have. So
Yeah, me and wires aren't exactly good friends, so.
Exactly, so we're just gonna keep it simple. So now, all we have to do is tape this all up right here, and then we have these couple, you know, this is all you need to basically interface with your chassis, so we'll be good to go. So let's tape it up, and then I guess we could just start plugging stuff in. We're finally out of the office, so we can get some legroom here. So check it out. This is your entire engine harness. We have the coils, we have everything that attaches to the engine. I'm upset that we don't have the connectors right here for these 3, but we talked about that already. Not a big deal, but we can plug all of this in and this will operate your engine, no problem. Then we have that 10 feet of wire that we need to tuck it all around so you can keep your base shave going. And then we have our relay that powers the harness, the ECU connector, and then all our wires that are going to interface with the chassis. So, you ready to plug this thing in?
I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm so ready.
Let's do it.
All right, so we just plugged it in super rough. Obviously, we're not gonna run it like this. It's kind of just thrown on top of it, but this is obviously just to make sure everything works. So we gotta go through the harness, make sure everything tests. This way, if something's not operating correctly, we can get to it easily. So, now, I mean, we could plug the ECU in and start testing a few things.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan.
Do you have a charge?
Testing.
You have a battery?
I have a battery.
Is it charged?
Yeah, it's in the car charged already.
You sure?
Yeah, look, when we turn on
Let's show them off. Josh's new G4X Monsoon.
Gimme.
Where can they get this, Josh?
Oh, from Jimmy Oaks. ShopJimmyO.com. Hop below and shop Jimmy O. Come on. Oh, there we go.
Ooh.
Woo! This thing's hot.
Love it. All right, well, let's plug this thing in. Josh's chassis wiring situation is actually far worse than I remember it. So, please don't mind any of this.
This is what nightmares are made of.
Oh, dude, you have no idea. All right, well, we have a battery back here. It's grounded with the engine and the rest of everything else. So I'm not happy I'm doing this right now, but I have the grounds hooked up and I have the power to trigger on the ECU and the relay for the harness, and we're just gonna kick it on. We are connected in the first test. I guess we'll test the injectors and test the coil packs. That's the easiest one to do. All right, first test, ignition test. Now these are R8 coils, so it's gonna bark. So watch out for flying sparks. Okay. You ready?
Ready. I hear something.
Pull it out.
Oh. That made a noise.
All right, what about this one? Next cylinder. Yeah. All right, well, they all work. Now let's try the injectors.
Oh. I'm bad at this test. That's one.
Yeah, the injectors are hard.
Yeah, that's one.
That's one? That's good. You ready?
Yep. I'm pretty sure that's two.
Okay, good. One.
Yeah, that's four.
All right, Josh. Well, we got injectors. We got ignition. Now, if we have a cam angle sensor and we finish setting up all the other sensors, this thing should run.
Should.
If everything else checks out that way.
Might actually go someplace.
So we heard this thing run like, what, 2 years ago for like
A
once.
couple minutes.
Yeah, and then after that we just could never get it to run right. After, it took us forever to get it run once,
Yeah.
and then it ran like once and then it never ran again. So as long as everything's good mechanically, this thing should set up very quickly.
That's as long as I put everything together right, which, I mean, I put it together.
We have to deal with the inside really bad.
Yeah, that's that. Well, once I know that this runs and continuously runs, then I'll tackle the inside, which actually
Right.
shouldn't take me all that long once I got the
All right.
motivation.
So all the plugs showed up super late today, and it took me way longer than I expected. So it's actually super late right now. But we found out that it doesn't take much to make these things run. It just takes a little bit to keep them running. So I think we did pretty good for today. We have a harness. We have so far a working harness. We found out we still need a couple
Odds and ends.
odds and ends, but
You know, these things always need odds and ends.
yeah, right. But in the meantime, I think we're making great progress, and I am super, super excited. So how you feeling, Josh?
I'm feeling great. We have stuff that's actually getting accomplished, and the car may actually drive down the road soon before snow falls, hopefully. But
You never know; it could happen tomorrow.
yeah, I know.
It's the Northeast.
It is the Northeast, and they already said that four-letter word for the northern part of the state later this week.
Well, I'm gonna leave it a cliffhanger there. So next time, will this thing run? Stay tuned on the next episode of Jimmy Oaks Garage. So I don't know. We're gonna end it. You guys have heard me talk and ramble on for the last probably 10 minutes. So we're gonna end it there. So you guys know the deal. Like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more content, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.